I was about 11 at the time, and I volunteered at the local animal shelter every day after school. It was pretty great. This particular incident happened around about the time of Halloween. Another girl and I were in the grooming area when another volunteer comes running in. He asked if we'd let any cats out of the kennels because there was this blue-grey cat running around in the garage. We drop everything and run over there because if the shelter staff find out that an animal got loose, we would be in deep trouble. So we managed to chase the cat to the main building. Instead of running into the cat area like we'd hoped, it ran straight into the euthanasia room and under the big machine that they still used. We shut the door so it couldn't get out, so we moved the machine out the way, and there's no cat. It's nowhere to be found. The cat is freaking gone. The three of us just sort of look at each other in shock and mutually not decided to say anything. I have no idea what happened there, but it was one of the creepiest incidences of my life.
My gram had this cat for a few years. Obese orange and white tabby. Kinda just comes and goes kinda cat named Butter. He met with an untimely end, so we buried him in the woods behind the house. One day, we're all having tea and toast, and I walk by his couch and see him sitting there, grooming himself, legs straight up in the air, and I kinda wave at him to swat me and say, "Hi, Butters." He stops and gives me that half-eyes open stare and goes right back to town grooming. I walk into the kitchen, wait for my toast, and stare at this photo on the fridge of this fuzzball of a kitten and realize that it is Butter, and also that he's been long dead. I slowly turn around and everyone seems to notice and ask me what's wrong. I tell them what I've seen, and my gram looks somewhat pleased to hear her cat is visiting.
My childhood cat Sunny passed away in October. It was incredibly traumatic for me. She was one of my closest friends, and since then, my family and I have heard and seen her. It began one day when I came home to visit from college. I was sitting with my other cat Cleo on the couch, waiting for my grandma to come pick me up. The house was silent. No TVs, no radios, no nothing. It was empty, except for me and Cleo. Or so I thought. All of a sudden I hear this meow coming from somewhere in the house. Cleo's ears perked up and she looked at me suddenly, so I knew I was not imagining it. Sunny had a very distinct meow, and so does Cleo. Sunny's meow was long and low, whereas Cleo's meow is high-pitched and short, almost like a kitten's. The meow I heard was exactly like Sunny's, so I looked at Cleo, and we were both staying still on the couch. About 10 seconds later, I heard the same meow again, and this time, I could distinguish where it was coming from. The basement, which incidentally was Sunny's favourite place to hang out as she was a pretty shy cat. We heard it about 2 more times before it ceased. I called my mum up excitedly and she didn't believe me, of course. That is until she heard it again several weeks later. Since then, we hear it every once in a while. There are no other cats in our basement, by the way, but it makes me happy to know that she's still around.
Back in '03, I took my kids to Europe for a vacation. One of our stops was in Pisa, Italy, where we stayed in an old monastery that had been turned into a hostel. That night, we all slept in a dorm room, but since it was off-season, we were the only ones in it. We had 3 separate beds that were right next to each other, and in the middle of the night, I distinctly felt a cat jump up on my bed and lay on my legs. It woke me up. So I looked to see the cat, and there wasn't one. Positive of what I felt, I tried to ignore it. So I lay back down to go to sleep, not wanting to get all freaked out about it. The next morning, I mentioned it to my kids, and my daughter, who's 15, said that the same thing had happened to her last night. That's the only time something like this has happened to me, and I'm glad it happened to her too to back up my story.
We had a cat for many years before we had kids. When we did have kids, the cat got very jealous and angry. It was normally a sweet cat to us, but would ambush my toddler son and began peeing everywhere, which it hadn't done before. It started to be really nasty to everyone. It actually bit and scratched my 2-year-old baby, completely without provocation. It was in one of these ambushes when we decided we could not keep him anymore, and at the time, no shelter would take him due to his age and overcrowding. With great regret, we had him euthanized at the vets. I felt awful, but soon, just as afraid. For about a month, I'd see him skulking around the house from the corner of my eye. I would hear him meow in the house every few days. Bearing in mind, there were no other cats in this house. The worst part was feeling him jump on the bed and circle into place between my ankles at night. I could never tell if these experiences were my imagination, a really guilty conscience, grief, or an actual haunting. The sightings and sounds, though, were physically hair-raising, and the chills were real. It all seemingly stopped about 5 weeks after his death. I never felt scared of his spirit, but I felt bad to have seen it. Truly, an angry, confused, sad presence. But not when it came to sleep with me. Then it seemed normal. My husband thought I was going nuts, as he of course saw and felt nothing. One night my husband was travelling, and I couldn't be sleeping by myself. After I put the kids to bed, I thought I'd seen the cat turn into the corner of my bedroom. I just couldn't take another freaky night, and I spoke out loud to the cat that I was sorry, and I also prayed to God to comfort him and remove him from our house. It never happened again. Still, I don't know if this is all real or if it just quieted my grieving mind. I only know that this actually happened. Hey guys, it's Mort here and thank you so much for listening. We're not done yet though. Follow me over to Killer Orange Cat's channel to get all 10 stories. He is an incredibly talented narrator, and if you haven't checked him out yet, you definitely should. He is someone who is really worth your subscription, and I know you'll love his content just as much as I do. So what are you waiting for? Let's go! Or if you've just come over from his channel, why not click one of the links on screen now for even more great stories? But anyway, stay awesome, and I'll see you over there.
One night, one of the cats must have been sitting on top of the kitchen cabinets and jumped down, somehow, turning on the stove and causing the kitchen to catch fire. My mom almost died and none of the cats survived. So last night, after I put my kids to bed, I went downstairs to smoke a cigarette in the kitchen. I swear, I heard a cat grooming itself,